Do. All right, so we are live.
Okay.
On YouTube. All right, hey, we're live on Facebook.
Yay!
Yay, we got it working. I'm not gonna lie. There was a part of me that debated whether or not I wanted to just do the Discord because that's how out of it I feel right now. And I was like, do I want people to see my face? Is this something that I'm going to be interested in? But I figured, our fans, such as they are, deserve to see us. So I am, I'm going to pull it together as best as I can for our fans because that's what they deserve. But I got to tell you, I'm not at 100% today.
Understood, man. Totally understandable.
Just it broke my heart, to see him screaming like that because it was the damnedest thing. We get there. Mm-hmm. First off, the place was packed, like way more packed than I would have liked, than I would have cared for. And then it was $25 a ticket. And we get there to find out that it's $25 just for the privilege of going to pick the apples. You have to pay for the fruit separately.
Wow. So
we were like, well, this is so my Angela, my sister and Drew and the kid show up, and Angela says to Kat, next time you get an idea like this, just let me know. I'll go to the store. I'll buy some apples. You can come over. I'll dump them on the ground in the backyard and we can pick them up. So then we're walking around the orchard and they've all been picked clean because we're going early October. The good stuff's been taken already. So we trekked for like 5 minutes through the orchard just to find some sections of trees that actually still had some apples on them. Pick one apple. And Theo didn't want to be in the stroller anymore, so we put him on the ground. He's wandering around. I turn to talk to my sister about something, and all of a sudden Theo starts screaming. I turn around. He's holding his little hand, and he's crying. We open it up. There's a stinger sticking out of his ring finger. I was like, I turned my back for a second, and there was an apple that was like, it was a rotted apple, and it was just swarming in bees, wasps. I don't know. I don't particularly care. He must have gone over to it and got stuck in his little finger. So we pulled the stinger out, and so we put some water on it, and I figure, all right, whatever. Let's just hopefully it's not that bad. 2 minutes later, it's like 3 times the size. It's red and everything. So we're like, well, this has been a shit show from jump. We're just going to go. So I run. So now we have to walk all the way back to the entrance, like speed walking, carrying a screaming child. So I'm like, does anybody have, there's there like a medical tent? And they said, oh, no medical tent. Go ask the police because the cops were doing traffic control. So I go to the cops. I'm like, does anybody have Benadryl? My son got stung by a bee. They said, check the store. I go in the store. I'm like, does anybody have Benadryl? And this young girl working behind the counter, bless her heart, she's like, I think I have some in my bag. Let me go check. So she pulls out and she comes back with the capsules. So I was like, it's better than nothing. So I bite into it so we can, squeeze some of it out because we obviously can't give him the whole thing. It's adult dosage. Side note, if you ever want to lose sensation in your tongue and lips, bite a Benadryl capsule. Your mouth will go
That's
numb.
really stupid. That's
Well, listen.
Oh my God.
Listen, I'm doing what I can. We didn't have infant Benadryl, and I got to give him something. So I squeezed out like a couple of drops into his mouth, gave him some Motrin, and I, ran to like a lemonade stand for a cup of ice so we can stick his hand in it, which doesn't work when you're dealing with a toddler. You can't say, no, stick your hand in the ice. It'll feel better. No, it doesn't work that way. And so we ran to a Walgreens and we got some infant Benadryl. And then, by the time we got home, his finger was at maybe 105%, of usual size as opposed to 300%. I didn't get any cider. I didn't get any donuts. I didn't care about the apples, whatever. I didn't give a shit about the apples or the pumpkins. I want the food, hot apple cider and warm, fresh apple donuts. That's amazing. I don't go in for the pumpkin stuff. Fuck pumpkins. Apples are where it's at. I just wanted some apple cider. And I didn't want my kid to get stung. And then on top of this, I haven't been able to breathe all goddamn day, except for when I was out of the house. I was out of the house. All of a sudden, I start feeling better. I come back home, start sneezing again. So I took 2 Benadryl about 45 minutes ago. So this is, I've never been one for those kind of podcasts where it's like, oh, hey, we're gonna drink and talk about stuff, whatever, on this show. We're gonna do that sort of thing. I never wanted us to be that kind of podcast.
Right.
I'm gonna be high on Benadryl. We're gonna see how the show goes.
And I had a single drink of Guinness. Okay, so I admit that.
Okay, 1 beer is not gonna.
I know, but if you're willing to say that, I'm willing to point out my state, which is totally fine considering I'm bringing out some language that I don't use on a daily basis. Actually, okay, I'm for anybody that's watching, I guess I'm potentially giving away the ending of the skit. Right now, I'm working with what you were saying. So he's truly engaged in the conversation. But once again, since it's not a friend conversation, it's really meant to be a clinical conversation. I have to go down that road. And it's one that, although he understands why I'm doing it, he doesn't want that, but it's not necessarily a bad thing either. In other words, I'm thinking that part of what he's trying to do is trying to establish a relationship with someone on a therapy level, even if it's not a true friendship, to at least have it seem that way. Because otherwise, all the people that he deals with are other mutants that he's fighting with, or people that he needs to save, or enemies. It's the type of space, like the type of breathing room that he doesn't get otherwise, and the idea that I at least have an intellect where he doesn't have to totally dumb it down, even though clearly he still would be for me, is a bit of a relief. So even if I'm just his pressure release valve, that's still clinically worthy.
Oh, I wish I could breathe. And I'll rephrase it. I wish I could breathe unimpeded.
Mm.
So how has your weekend been?
Yesterday, I saw 17 patients and was charting until about 1 in the morning. Well, no. I apologize. My original plan was to chart until 1 in the morning. What I did instead was chart until 10 p.m., then go to bed, wake up at 5 to finish charting instead. So today was definitely better, which is why I'm able to record with you. But yeah, it was a busy weekend.
So you wouldn't have been able to record last night pretty much anyway.
Yeah, not that I originally had that plan, but as the day was going, or as the morning started, like when I got your text, I'm like, perfect.
Yeah. I was like, okay. Because yesterday I had the guys working here all day, putting in a brand new furnace, and they came at like 8:15 and they didn't finish until almost 5. So, hey, Andy, faithful Andy in our Discord, chatting us up.
Yay.
Andy, waves. Matt messaged me that Chad says, "Hey Doc, hey Uncle Tony." What you know about this? Man, you don't know nothing about this.
Oh my God.
Matt said that Hank McCoy would have been one of his selections for a character,
Okay.
and that had he gotten to pick it, he would have jumped on the Discord and answered in character, like throughout the bit.
And he has the voice for it.
He does have the voice for it.
Oh man.
Because he said Hank McCoy is he goes, I hated Hank for years because, well, he's me.
Oh man. All I could think of right now is just even the discussions on TCNJ Talks. And yes, that comes to mind. Oh wow.
So he said, if we want to try that as something fun in the future, I could also do it with Lobo or the cockroach from Cerebus, who are my other lifelong spirit animals.
Oh, Lobo. Oh.
Yeah, if we ever get to the main man, and I'm sure we will at some point.
Yes.
All right. I've also been trying to figure out. So this is Andy says this is Dr. Henry McCoy, not Age of Apocalypse. Yes, this is regular Beast, not Dark Beast.
Yes.
And we'll explain that. This is also regular timeline Beast, not time displaced young McCoy in the future. We do reference that, but we'll get to, this is mainline 616 Beast. So just to clarify that point. Dark Beast would be a very fascinating take on it as well. And I'm sure we will get to that, get to him at some point. If we want to tackle the Age of Apocalypse. I know we briefly referenced it when we were doing our episode on Apocalypse. We referenced the whole Age of Apocalypse and alternate timeline, and
yeah.
I'm trying not to distract you too much from writing because you're taking this and running with it. So,
well, dude, you gave me the hint. I'm like, I don't have a problem with that.
Let's see. Also, I know it's a sign that I've been playing the game too much when I have the music from Dr. Mario World in my head.
Oh, boy.
It's so addictive. But so much fun. All right. I know the beginning part of this isn't very exciting for anybody watching while finishes up writing. No, it's fine.
Yeah.
I can shoot the shit as best I can. I'm just trying to.
To explain for those who aren't used to this, what's happening is Anthony usually does the main write-up of the episode with all the background information. Depending on the issues, we split those, or he comes up with them, or I come up with them, whatever the case may be. We usually don't have to write things specifically for treatment in universe and out of universe because I like that to be spontaneous and him not know ahead of time, for the most part, what it is I'm going to say about those. And then the skit, though, after the first, 1 or 2 episodes where we tried it off the cuff, but our audio was so bad, we re-recorded them and realized we probably should write them down. So that's what we've done from that point forward. So writing out the skits, sometimes it's a mix of him and me. Sometimes it's mostly him. This time it's, this one so far actually is pretty much all me, although he's cleaned up a few pieces for sure, thankfully.
Apparently, Chris from Play Comics just discovered that the Addams Family started off as single panel
comics. Yeah.
He was from Westfield, so.
Oh, okay. All right.
Every night, the Disney World maintenance staff hoses down the park with over 120-degree water so all the gum will melt off the midways and queue lines. Very, very interesting. But stupid. Benadryl is my friend. Here's a tip for all you folks. You don't have to worry about illegal drugs. You don't have to worry about marijuana, heroin, cocaine, any of that. Just take Benadryl, man. You don't need acid. Just take, but don't be like the stupid TikTokers and like do like the Benadryl challenge or whatever, where they're like, oh, I'm gonna like fucking OD on Benadryl or whatever it is, and I'm gonna
yeah.
just
Okay.
take two to three Benadryl. That's all you need, and you'll just start.
Okay, so as a doctor, let me just point out that Benadryl, while it is a life-saving medication, does for some people produce a paradoxical effect. Some people get more agitated from it. In addition to that, please be careful because as you get older, your tolerance for Benadryl may indeed change. It can lead to delirium, which will require medical hospitalization because you start hallucinating or simply not being able to process reality, become disoriented to time and space, and it is not something to be taken lightly. So please be careful. I know Anthony means the best, and I know it's a very funny thing to say, and it's cool, but at the same time, I'm sorry, as a doctor, I gotta protect myself, man. You know, no offense.
You don't need Benadryl to fuck with your ability to perceive time and space. This is 2020. Being stuck at home for 7 months has done enough of that already.
Oh, as my current clinical
Time
practice
has no meaning
has shown.
Anymore. Andy says getting rid of gum is a job that you have to stick with.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, for the skit and just in general, I can't shoehorn in swearing or anything. It just doesn't fit.
I know. That's fine. We did. I did see that you got in on my stars and garters. So I was like, "Oh, we have to get that in at some point."
Oh, you knew. Yeah, of course. There were a few other things that I was going to try and bring in from my own, admittedly limited literary knowledge. I was going to try and shoehorn in. Have you ever read The Island of Dr. Moreau?
No, but I saw the horrendous movie with Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando.
Oh, sorry to hear that. So
am I. That's something we should do a riff tracks on.
Yes, absolutely. But so there's the sayer of the law, and I think it fits Beast in a way that the law is not to go on all fours. That is the law. Are we not men? Not to suck up drink, meaning like, lapping up like a cat or like an animal. That's the law. Are we not men? Not to eat fish or flesh. That is the law. Not to claw the bark of trees. Not to chase other men. That is the law. Are we not men? I was trying to shoehorn it in. I'm like, you know what? It doesn't fit. So,
by the way, I also I'm trying to figure out a third point. His intellectualism, the dichotomy between his physical and his mental.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't even look at the
issues.
So, okay. Okay.
All right. Well, you look at the issues, then I'll see if.
Okay. Yeah, okay, those two. Yeah, those two are real obvious. That's great. Okay, point three. Oh, it's something that I hint at in the skit, actually. And that, although I know he's shown range, but there's a certain style that he's written in at some points where I've even said this to myself. I'm like, is Beast manic? As a matter of fact, I'm just gonna.
In instances where it was written that Beast was potentially bipolar.
Okay, so I'm just putting that as the question for the third issue. Okay.
Andy suggests loyalty.
Okay.
If Avenger, X-Men.
Okay.
I mean, we can discuss that in the character background, because I know it definitely comes into play in AVX as well as in Humans versus X-Men.
Yeah.
So I mean, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100% certain that would be a separate issue.
I hear you. I like it. I mean, okay, fair enough. I'm just using. I apologize because I'm not trying to override Andy or anything in that sense. It's just that the reason I'm bringing that particular part with Matt is because I feel like it can be a great. I'm gonna use this trope. It's gonna be a great edutainment point. I'm not trying to diagnose Beast. I'm just trying to use it as just a catapulting talking point. Or as a Joe Budden reference, they're so happy on the outside, they could only be happy on the outside. Man, I wish we had his podcast numbers, I'll tell you that.
I'd take 1/10 of his podcast numbers.
Not the drama with Spotify, but
No. No. And as I've said many times, we will never be platform exclusive. I'm trying to just come up with an ending here.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Where, he's, do you see where I'm getting at? Like where,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you would reference the fact that you met with Logan, because I don't know what that would.
That part I'd have to be careful about, but I understand. I get your point. Actually, I think okay. Whoops. Sorry, 1 second.
Andy says, I mostly know Modern Beast from the Hickman Illuminati run where Xavier left him as the mutant representative. So loyalty may not be as notable as I perceive it. No, I think I think it is a fair issue. Well done, Doc. I like
I know
the transition.
Yeah. I want to keep up the jovial, nature of it at this point, because that really is what he's doing. All right. What is an ending line that Beast would use?
Let's see. I took keen on the insurance. Private home, I'll tempt you again.
God. Oh, no. Okay. Nice.
All right. I think we're ready to roll.
Yep. All right. Audition time.
Yep. Get that up and running.
Yep.
The nice thing is when we record in 2 weeks, that it's all going to be basically, there's not going to be a whole lot of lead time. It's just going to be, all right, let's just record.
Yeah.
You know, get the Google Doc up and running, and then
Okay.
All right, I'm recording whenever. Wait a second.
Same.
Wait. Hold on.
Okay.
Why does it keep doing that now?
What's the matter? You okay?
How do I change sample rate? I don't want 4,800.
Mm.
All right, hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, sample rate 4,100. So I would like to override it. Device class master clock. Here we go. Settings. Speakers. Aha. No, not input. Properties. Here we go.
Okay. All right. So are you set now? Okay. All right, I'm ready whenever. 3, 2, 1. Okay. All set. Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know. What did you do? My mic is picking up me. The recording on my end is picking up me, which is important. Did you accidentally mute all tabs? Can you hear anything? Okay, something again. Oh dear. Oh wow, really dating yourself there. Yeah. I remember when he was the quarterback of the Bud Light team in the Bud Bowl. Can anybody hear me then? Now? Okay. Yeah, I've been able to hear you. That never stopped. That never stopped. I could hear you the whole time. Oh dear. Okay. Can you hear anything? Like if you were to open up a video or something, can you hear that? Can you hear an audio file? Okay. But you're saying you can't hear me. Do you have the tab muted? Hmm. Hmm. Okay. All right. Let's see how this goes. Still waiting to figure out the. You can hear me in Discord. Okay. Okay. That's always good. Okay, great. So then you just gotta grab your spot on get vocal.
Okay.
All right.
All right. We're back. Okay. Now let me
Okay.
reopen Audition.
All right. Should I just create a new file? Because at this point I'm like 6 minutes in.
Yeah.
All right. So all right. I will back out of this.
Yep.
Okay.
Again, sorry about that. Okay, I'm up and running. All right, sorry, folks. You ready?
I am now.
Okay. In 3, 2, 1. Okay.
All right. Okay.
All right. And now let's, as Captain Barnacles and Octonauts would say, let's do this.
Let's do this.
In 3, 2, Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is issue number 98. Hank McCoy, as requested by Ruby, but also Matt. Matt said he would have picked Hank McCoy on his list eventually, but Ruby sort of beat him to it. But we'll just we'll call this a mostly Ruby with some support from Matt episode. So just quick reminder that time is almost up for voting on our award show. Go to capesonthecouch.live/nominees and find the Google link. You folks have about another week and a half before we actually record the episode, because we record basically on the weekend before it comes out. So that's when the voting is going to end, basically like that Saturday afternoon. So get your votes in now. And want to say that we've got some very exciting news that we will be sharing once we get like formal, I guess, approval to promote it. But it's going to be something really, really cool. We're very jazzed about it. I think it's going to be great things for the podcast. Side note, I apologize. I've been suffering an allergy attack all day, and it's basically just been a day from hell for me. I've been suffering from an allergy attack, and then my son got stung by a bee, and his finger swelled up to like 3 times its size. So, and I'm on Benadryl now. So I don't know what I'm going to sound like by the time this episode is done. I never wanted this to be one of those shows where it's like, hey, we're going to have a few drinks or smoke some stuff and, shoot the breeze about whatever topics, but I need the drugs. So I apologize in advance for if by the end of it, I'm like, hey, man, okay. It's going to end up being like an ASMR type podcast, like, Anthony wants to discuss Beast. Let's have fun. Anthony's going to be crinkling some papers. Doesn't that make you feel tingly? Yes.
Stop.
That's what this show is going to become with Anthony on drugs.
Stop.
ASMR.
ASMR
ASMR personally gives me like the heebie-jeebies.
This is going to be a guided therapy session, similar to giving someone ketamine and making sure that they're having the proper experience.
Ketamine, who am I, Moon Knight? That joke is going to be for about 3 people, but they're going to find it friggin' hilarious. All right. Hank McCoy, a.k.a. The Beast, created by the legends Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in X-Men #1, September 1963. That's right. Hank McCoy is one of the OG X-Men. He appears human, at least initially, but he has proportions and agility similar to a monkey, including prehensile feet. He enjoys the resources for learning that Xavier provides, but he soon joins the Brand Corporation as a scientist, and there he inadvertently transforms himself into a more animalistic form.
Yep, classic. What has science done?
You did it yourself, Hank. So he joins the Avengers, where he remains a full-time and reserve member for many, many years, such that I think his time in the Avengers at one point had long eclipsed his tenure with the X-Men. So he joins the Defenders for a while, and then X-Factor, which reunites him with the original X-Men team. He rejoins the X-Men proper in 1991, and then he is part of one of the many, many storylines in which Hank is involved. He discovers a cure for the legacy virus, but Colossus chooses to sacrifice himself to release it, causing Hank much regret. And you can listen to our episode on Colossus that we recorded live at Rogue Comics to find out more about Peter's sacrifice. So he then later has a secondary mutation, causing him to take on a bit more of a feline appearance. So then he becomes disillusioned with Scott's leadership because Scott is a dick. And so he leaves the X-Men again.
You beat me to it.
I'm reading this, so yes, I'm going to beat you to it. So he leaves the X-Men again and joins the Secret Avengers for a time. That's a really cool book. I did thoroughly enjoy the Secret Avengers, not the least of which is just because Moon Knight was on the team. So in Avengers versus X-Men, Hank ends up siding with the Avengers against the Phoenix Five. I recall that he and Wolverine both side with the Avengers due to their membership on both teams against the Phoenix Five. And then after Scott's escape from prison and subsequent militant viewpoint, Hank travels back in time to bring the original young teenage X-Men to the present to help talk Scott down. And that is in the all-new X-Men written by, I believe, Brian Michael Bendis. So then during Inhumans versus X-Men, he tries to get mutants to leave Earth before dying of Terrigen poisoning, but they imprison him, and then he later reconciles with the team when they realize that he was actually right all along. And then most recently in the House of X Powers of 10, Jonathan Hickman reboot of the X-Men stories, he is serving on Krakoa, and he's overseeing the data analysis systems. So we are going to be mostly focusing on the main timeline Beast. We're not going to be talking about the time displaced Beast, nor are we going to be discussing Dark Beast from the Age of Apocalypse. Those are both, I would argue, separate characters that we could do sole episodes on individually. At the very least, Dark Beast. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much time displaced Beast, but definitely Dark Beast would make, I think, for a great episode. So,
agreed.
Just to clarify those things. So, issues. Hank is brilliant. He is a doctor. He is a geneticist. He is a biochemist. He is the team's medical doctor. He's a very, very smart man. He's an intellectual to a fault. He doesn't believe there's a problem that he can't solve by experimenting. And I think the perfect example of this is going back in time and bringing the young X-Men to the present. And he's like, oh, I don't think this is going to be a bad thing at all. Never mind how many times the X-Men have messed with timelines and continuity. I'm just going to bring our younger selves to the present and interact with them and say, hey, this is what future you is doing. Get him to stop. Marty McFly's head would explode. But that kind of mindset of just thinking that because I'm so smart, I can solve anything.
Mm-hmm.
We've done a number of very intelligent characters, but I think Hank is one of the ones that really takes it to an extreme.
Yeah. And to his credit, he doesn't do it in any malicious format. There's no time I've noticed when reading through these books that I thought he was quote unquote a mad scientist, or that there was a certain level of added narcissism to it, which seems to go hand in hand with intellectualization, the way it's usually portrayed in media as a whole. It really is a person that thinks that because they have solved many problems, that they can extrapolate it to any situation. So I'm sure in his dissertations and other situations, he's been able to do these things. And because they've had positive results, he doesn't get called to the carpet. But the magnitude with which he acts is above and beyond anything that you could expect in reality. To bring it to something that's timely, it would be the equivalent of someone that is at one of the three major firms that is trying to develop the COVID vaccine, and their lead scientist not only saying, I think we are on the right track, they would say, not only am I on the right track, I think we're at the point that if you allow me to work on this for the next month, that we are going to have it in full development with mass production without the need for any other replicable studies and not even trials on other people to the proper level when you get to level 3, because I know I'm that good. Because it's my idea, which I guess there is, I take it back. There is an inherent sense of narcissism, but because it's my idea and I know that this is an expertise I have, it has to work. It has to be the right way. When there may be other alternatives that are just as good, if not better. And more importantly, it allows for people to give the proper weight to a circumstance and get the proper feedback. There is a reason why, although in history books we may focus on one person doing something because it's easier to make that digestible memory bite in school, We know, anyone that's in a major field in science knows this. You do not ever take full credit and responsibility for something that has been done because you know there are so many other people involved. That's the way things work. Experimentation is very important. Trial and error and accidental success is the way humanity has got to where it is. For some people, I'm sure you can insert your own joke there. But the fact that we've developed systems where we know that we want things to be replicable, we want things to be randomized, controlled trials, double-blind, placebo studies that basically say, let's take as many of the human factor criteria out of it and just work with the data that we get without regard for how smart you are and go ahead and do that process. That's all really important. And sometimes Hank just gets ahead of himself and pushes things forward, which is why I use that trope. What has science done? That's usually what they're referring to. And it's something that we've recognized can be incredibly dangerous. There is always going to be a certain level of risk, but risk mitigation is something that we've really come to appreciate within the last century. And hopefully Hank will allow us to catch up with him.
One can only hope. I do think that I do appreciate your use of the COVID example. I do think that was that's timely, and certainly I think the focus on science lately, or at least over the last 6 to 8 months, especially with this vaccine, has really brought to light a lot of the scientific community and the things that they have done. My fear, and a lot of what I see lately, and this is sort of a tangent, is just the whole notion of, oh, well, science gets it wrong. Well, scientists used to say this and science now says this. Well, who can you believe? And I said, that's how science works, though, is you have a hypothesis, you have a theory, you test it. Sometimes these theories don't pan out. And then
literally the definition of the null hypothesis, that the opposite of what you are hypothesizing is the actual reality.
And just the very scientific method is test and, observe and test and come up with ideas. Some things work some of the time, some things work none of the time. And that's how you advance. That's how you learn. But you can't just say, well, because it used to say this and now it says this. Yeah, that's evolution.
I will also, to bring it back to Hank, I'll also tell people, always have a certain level of skepticism with information. That's fine. But recognize that the whole idea of this is to come to a consensus when you have a certain amount of data and you know that you have to make decisions that aren't completely in a vacuum. So, for example, this entire vaccine process is faster than anything that's ever been developed for vaccines in human history. Is that a good thing? I like to think that it is, because so far the literature that's being provided indicates that this is something that appears it's going to work properly. Having said that, do not immediately take my word for it. Do not immediately take Anthony's word for it. You can ask your own physician about it. You can ask infectious disease specialists. You can ask. But don't take my word for it.
Ask LeVar Burton.
So all of it is something that we always have to weigh this information. But believe it or not, there are people that are dedicated to do this for their careers. And I'd like to think that rather than saying it's blind faith, it's more the proper vetting and experience process with a system that we know has allowed for us to do so much good. The fact that Anthony and I are speaking on the internet with anyone being able to listen at any moment in a matter of seconds, that's something that didn't just randomly happen. I didn't just pull together a whole bunch of metal and random materials and say, hey, Anthony, this is what I just created. Let's do this. This is something that developed over decades, centuries even. So give it some credit. both in healthcare and in other parts of science and technology.
I've been reading so many things that this is going to be the worst, like, perfect storm of everything, because we're going to rush this vaccine, which is only going to give further credibility to the anti-vax crowd, and that they're not going to get vaccinated from COVID. And if, God forbid, there's any complications from the COVID vaccine on account of the shortened time frame, that this is just going to...
Yeah. Understood. But also, you know what? I'm going to bring it back to Hank, because then in that case, the thing that might be a problem for someone like Hank is that he would try and get to the forefront of that and just simply say, because this is something I'm doing, it's important and it has to work this way. And that type of cheerleading can be just as detrimental. So it would behoove someone... It would behoove someone like Hank to allow multiple people, not just himself, to say, okay, mind if we take a look at this? Can you let us in on the secret? Thanks. Okay, moving on.
Again, we could rehash that point numerous times. So we'll move on to the second thing, which is the struggle, his internal struggle with the dichotomy between his physical form and his mental abilities. Hank is, as we said, he's a brilliant man in the body of a cat / beast / simian type creature.
Yep.
And so the whole notion of, the beast pretending to be brilliant. No, in this case, he is. And I do think it's wonderful that the character is written and has grown and evolved, the way that he has. And it's been used as a plot point for decades. I think one of the best runs on it was done with in the Astonishing X-Men, the Joss Whedon run, where he ends up, they hit him with basically a devolution. Somebody, I forget exactly how, it involves Ord of Breakworld and the Hellfire Club, etc. And he ends up devolving so that he's just a primordial type beast, and his base instincts take over until he plays with a ball of string, and then that sets up the triggers. But it's the fact that he used to be mostly human in appearance, even if he had large hands and prehensile feet, and now he's blue, furry, and very, very animalistic. And that scares people until he opens his mouth.
Yep. So I have a little bit of difficulty in coming up with a great analog to that. Although the idea of someone looking intimidating, but not exactly matching their outward appearance isn't that far off. If you want to go more the opposite way, where instead of it being intimidating, it's just something that really throws you off. Good example of that, Stephen Hawking.
Yes.
You would, let's be honest, you would probably think like, oh my goodness, I mean, how is this person surviving? How are they working in this world? And then when he uses the assistive technology to tell you about his books, and you realize, wow, I am amazed. I can't believe that this person is alive in this world and is able to contribute so much from a science standpoint, an intellectual standpoint, whatever you want to call it. That's something that I think plenty of people have to deal with in terms of background as well. If you have someone that comes from a certain area, or maybe didn't go to an Ivy League school, but for whatever reason, they are now, in a situation where they've had more prominence than they ever expected. People look at their quote unquote origin story in life and they go, wow, how does that happen? How do you end up doing all of these things despite what has ever happened to you, or some situation that you were set up for failure? The concern with that is the person that's experiencing all of this can go in different directions. One of which Could be that they start to play on it. They actually start to try to develop pity from other people, saying, look at me, look at how much I've gone through. No one has suffered more than me in the history of the world. And any minor slight is now considered a major aggression against their very existence. And it can lead not just to, not just anger, but true disdain for society. I've actually seen that with patients where they feel like, because everyone looks at them that way, they look at them differently based on the story that has been told about them. They didn't get to write that narrative themselves. And let's be honest, first impressions usually are physical impressions. And so I think gender sometimes can play into that. There's a reason why it's called a glass ceiling. There's so many ways that this can go. And with Hank, it's dare I say, it's visceral. You can't hide if you're scared of someone. You can't hide if you're intimidated. You could try, but especially if the person is used to seeing it, they may develop the proper coping mechanisms, which Hank, I think, shows several times. We'll get to that in treatment. But there's a good chance that they're going to develop a certain level of sarcasm or cynicism. Doesn't have to be the fun wit that Beast shows. And it leads to this self-perpetuating system where the person gets instantly rejected on first impression. The person acknowledges that is what they expect, and therefore they start to tailor their responses towards continuing that, even if it's to their detriment, because it's all they know. Thankfully, Beast doesn't usually do that. He takes a much different approach. And he actually reverses, I don't want to say reverse psychology, but he reverses the flow of emotions. In other words, I'm willing to demonstrate to you that I acknowledge your response, but I'm very comfortable with the fact that there is a wide range. And then it's up to the person that had the initial response to figure out what they're going to do next. So he tends to flash it right back. He becomes a mirror man. And his outward appearance leads to your inner emotions.
He's your mirror man.
Yep. By the way,
Well,
I did not.
I'm last time you did something for the first time.
We haven't made a direct Tough Mudder reference in a while, so I can't take credit for that. Just to let you guys know.
That's all right. It's just like I said. You said mirror man, and Sean popping in my head was the first thing that I thought of. So last thing, and again, Beast as a character is so wonderfully rich that we could go for hours on that. But it's a simple question based on some of the writing and based on even comments by the writers who have worked on him. Is Beast manic? Is Beast bipolar? Because there are definitely times when it appears that Beast goes through what can only really be described as a manic state. And so it then raises the question, is there a subsequent depressive state that follows that? Because he doesn't accomplish everything that he wished he could have done with all of his brains. And speaking as someone who has gone through manic states before, manic is an incredible high, and you feel like you could do anything. And then when it ends, you sit there and go, oh, I really should have done this, or I could have done that. And you shoulda, woulda, coulda yourself into a depressive state because the manic wasn't as active or as productive as you wished it could have been. Even though you were working for 5 hours like your ass was on fire, there's only so much you can do. Biology is going to say you cannot physically sustain that for any long period of time. That cannot become your default. So from manic, you come back down to baseline. The hope is that you just return to baseline and you don't dip further. But I'm stepping on your territory at this point. I'm just speaking from personal experience.
Well, no, that's quite all right, because after all, our own personal experiences are what make life worth it. So with someone like Beast, the way he's written at times, they make it very clear that he dedicates long periods of time where he doesn't even need sleep to work on these huge projects. He has the inflated sense of self-worth that only he can solve these complex situations, not necessarily excluding other people, but knowing that he has to be at the forefront. He does view it as a good challenge. But in addition to that, even in the most tense situations where you would expect someone to start getting worn down, he decides that he's usually going to take not just a high road approach, but almost a delusional approach of this carefree, witty, incredibly jovial, even at times, type of character, depending on the way he's written, even in really dire straits. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that there is no point to be doom and gloom about everything all the time, but if everything's on fire around you, that doesn't necessarily mean your job is to dance in the flames. So he kind of skirts that line depending on what the circumstance is. And you raised a great point. Does he show another side? Well, I mean, he has shown despair. He has shown the times where he realized things didn't go the way he wanted. Is it at the point of depression? My point of this, bringing this up as an issue, is not to diagnose Hank. It really isn't. It's just to raise that question, because there are so many people. Once again, since you brought up your experience, I'll bring up my general experience, clinical experience, peer experience with other doctors. When we're in college, when we're in medical school, when we're pulling all-nighters, and I see these people taking these tests, doing well, all of that, and then out of nowhere, the very next thing, I know it's college life, and I know it's med school life too, where the very next thing is some people will say, oh my God, I need to recover from this. I'm just going to crash the next weekend. While other people are like, all right, when's the next party? And they party. And they party. And they party. And we haven't seen them in a week and a half in class. Not that they were going to class anyway, because they were studying outside of class, so we don't notice it. But then the next week that they come in, even though there's no test, they're still really amped up or irritable, because it's not all happy. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. And they're yelling at people at the drop of a hat. And they're not nearly as functional as they think they are. But heaven forbid you call them out on it. And it leads to some discord with their relationships. And they're still making it through because they're really smart. But you could tell that they may need to tweak things just a little bit so that emotionally they can get back on track. Once again, that can be any number of people. That doesn't make it a diagnosis of bipolar, but all of these factors do lead to changes in mood. And that's my point. The idea that if you're not sleeping because you have significant goals and you're willing to do it to your detriment, like short-term pain for long-term gain, well, just make sure it's not long-term pain. Be aware of how your behaviors are setting you up for an emotional shift, because the people around you are going to call you out on it if you don't recognize it early enough. Yes, there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong per se with all-nighters, even though they're shown in general not to be that effective, which is why, full disclosure, I've never done one. I have never stayed up all night into the next day to study for a test. Never done that in my life. I probably should have at a couple of points, probably to get some better grades in med school. But hey, I
have never stayed up all night to study.
Okay.
Well, put that caveat on there. I've never stayed up all night to study. I've stayed up all night in college for plenty of reasons. NFL 2K or whatever.
Or if you've been caught by your parents where someone says, hey, you're up awfully early, to which you respond, technically, I'm up awfully late. That's just one example of the spectrum of it. But those are things that in our basic life, that could be at work. That could be the fact that you have to stay up with a kid because of their erratic sleep schedule. That could be just about anything that can really shift things into... that could be shifting things into a more manic state, or the crash that comes along with it, or the notice that just because you're trying to get the recovery sleep that doesn't work nearly as well as people think it does, and you end up in bed way more than you thought you would, and now you can't get up out of bed, or people really have to force you to go do something that you're supposed to do and you don't want to do it, and now you're on the other end of the spectrum. I wonder. And I wonder how someone like Hank, let's be real, I know it's not necessarily written this way, I wonder how someone like Hank would then deal with some of those comments or slights that he must get because of his appearance. I don't think he would be as jovially witty as he's always portrayed. Just a supposition on my part.
Interesting. So you think that the whole notion of him just brushing it all off is kind of a facade?
I think there's a part of it that's a facade. I'm not saying all of it, but I think there's parts that are clearly amplified, and that, to give a lot of things away, I think we'll hint at that a little bit later on.
Yeah, well, I know that Steve Englehart, I think, who wrote a lot of the Amazing Adventures where Hank initially first became a beast, said that he said Hank, being an intellectual, would choose to, face this with a smile and be not happy about it, but that would help prevent him from really falling into any major despair over, over what had happened to him. But I do think it also does weigh on him. And I think that bears itself out in plenty of comics. I know at one point in the 70s, though, he is a sex symbol as Beast. That there's women throwing themselves at him and treating him like some sort of a god. And apparently that ended up in turn creating a lot of very positive letters written to Marvel from female readers saying, hey, I would love to see Beast, portrayed in a more sexual light, whatever. Maybe there are furries. I don't know.
Oh dear.
No, in all seriousness, I'm not going to yuck somebody else's yum. So we're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we'll get into treatment. Stay tuned. I think all things considered, I'm mentally holding up pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see because I can feel myself, I can feel myself starting to fade, though. So I think it's going to be a situation where I'm fighting and fighting and fighting to stay awake and aware. And then as soon as this ends and the adrenaline or whatever equivalent wears off, I'm going to crash hard. So let's get to that point before I crash hard while the microphone is up and running.
All righty.
And back in 3, 2, and we're back. Treatment in universe. I would be very curious to see, and I know some of this is going to play out a bit in the skit, but I'd be very curious how you would treat Hank in universe, given all of the technology and abilities that are at your disposal, and also given the fact that he works on a team with Charles and Emma and Jean and etc.
Yeah, so I want to create the most dull environment possible using Cerebro, because Beast is the product of an environment that has to be the most stimulating, if not overstimulating, set of circumstances throughout his life. If it's not his own appearance that would generate it, it's everyone around him. It's the idea of humans and mutants living in the same world, those that oppose them, be it from the mutant side itself or the humans. It could be when he's with other teams and the clear problems that he's had to deal with being on so many different teams and kind of having to straddle the line sometimes. The ability to use such superhuman strength in addition to his intellect and having to rely on that to solve the world's problems in more ways than one, all of it, that doesn't create the opportunity for quiet. You can't, or it's very difficult to have a truly quiet mind. And I don't know if I can recreate that any other way than to kind of blank it out a bit. And I think I would need some of that power with Professor X to try and do that. In other words, take away the beastly look, but take away all of it. Take away the mutants, take away the villains, even the heroes, take away the books, the learning, the intellectualization, take away all of that. Who are you? Clearly, you need all of that to be Hank. You need all of it. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have it, but what happens when you put one piece back and not the other? What happens when, and he's experienced this before, but not in a controlled setting. That's the beauty of it. He's had changes in his appearance. He's had changes in his intellect. He's had changes in alliance. All of it were things that were thrown at him, or he did in a haphazard way. I'm saying I'm the one. Look at me. I'm the captain now. So doing that in that type of controlled setting might free his mind to have a different experience and be able to process emotions that he hasn't in a much different way.
So you're looking to take all of that other stuff away and see what's left.
Yeah.
You're going to duck amok Hank McCoy.
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting. For those of you, by the way, who don't get that reference, Duck Amuck is it's my personal pick for greatest cartoon of all time. Chuck Jones deconstructs Daffy Duck literally and figuratively and says, if you take away the appearance, the voice, what is there still an essence of a character there? Is there still something undefinable that is distinctly Daffy Duck? And Chuck Jones does a master job of showing that, yes, you can strip everything else away and there is still an idea, there is still an essence of Daffy Duck, and I'm going to show it to you in like 6 minutes. It's a masterpiece. Like I said, it's my personal selection for greatest cartoon of all time. I know everybody likes to talk about what's Opera Doc, also a classic, but Duck Amuck to me is just, it's beautiful. So Duck Amuck, Hank McCoy, strip everything away, see what's left. And then there's your answer. Now, out of universe, I think one of the closest analogs is something that you referenced earlier, someone like a Stephen Hawking, where at the very least you have that dichotomy between the physical form and the mental capacity, in the sense that there's the potential for people underestimating the mind of someone like Stephen Hawking, because the fact that, he was confined to a wheelchair and unable to speak, unable to move. Or conversely, maybe you flip it the other way, somebody like a Dolph Lundgren, where he is this large, very muscular individual, and yet Dolph Lundgren was, he has a chemistry background. Dolph Lundgren is a brilliant man.
Yep.
But there's that difference.
Yeah. And my love of boxing. So the Klitschko brothers, Vladimir and Vitaly, they are nicknamed Dr. Steelhammer and Dr. Iron Fist. The reason for that is they both are PhDs. So there have been NFL players. Steve Young is famous because he got his law degree. There are NFL players that actually have medical degrees. Former NFL player has represented the NFL Players Association and the NBA Players Association when they got their professional degrees. So basically the idea that people get pigeonholed or stereotyped based on appearances, but then have a significant level of brain to go with the brawn, or whatever other circumstances there are related to it, or just simply the idea, if we don't want to just talk about that pure dichotomy, anything else that relates to someone that clearly has something that is not expected of them based on superficial appearances, or even if they're not superficial, they're known for one major thing, but they also have something else in their life that they do really well that doesn't nearly get the same response. So in any of those cases, some people want to pivot into that other thing, and they don't know how to do it, and that creates emotional turmoil. For some people, it's simply the idea that, doggone it, can I be treated as a regular person before being treated as a celebrity? Or forget celebrity, just can I be treated as someone that is considered an equal human being to you, as opposed to this look of intimidation, like, wow, that guy could break me in half. Like but that's not what I want to do. I want to just talk. All those circumstances do take it takes a certain level of vulnerability of the therapist as well, because full disclosure, the therapist more than likely may have a similar reaction, because we're all human. Thankfully, with lots of training, especially if you know ahead of time and you do your homework on the case and you actually talk with the person ahead of time to know what it is that they may be dealing with, you can temper your response compared to other people. That doesn't mean it won't be there, but at least if it does show up, you can acknowledge it from the start and say, is that what we're working with? And if the person says yes, then it's like, okay, great. Then, how is it that you've developed the coping skills to recognize that other people are not going to change around you? See, that's one of the big points of therapy I don't think we've talked about in a while. One of the biggest issues with someone getting counseling is that their goal may be to try and change the people around them, and they think that the therapist is going to be the catalyst for that. If you could just talk to my family, or if you could just talk to my coworkers, or if you could just talk to, this person and get them to understand me, then everything is going to be okay. And in that case, the therapist's job is to help them develop the realization that that is not the case.
Or the flip side is, if I start to grow and change in therapy, that will start the other person to grow and change. That if I start doing this, the other person will follow suit.
Excellent nuanced point. That's fantastic, because you're right. That is another part to it. And unfortunately, while I hope those things may happen for that person, there is no guarantee. And the therapy itself does not have that goal. So to invite that is a fallacy. And it's something that has to be approached with a person going through this, because that's the most common thing that I hear and that I see. So just even working on that base point could take a while. And once the person is able to process that, then it gets to the idea of, okay, we're not going to change the outside world. Is there any development or growth related to you with the coping mechanisms for things that aren't going to change that we can incorporate? Making sure that they recognize the ones that they already have. In Hank's case, he's got the intellect, that's fine. That wit, and I know we did an episode on quipping, he doesn't do it in the way that many other people do, in my opinion. He usually does it in a way where I think he makes it clear he wants to actually have a civil discussion of some serious topics, depending on what's going on, and he's willing to use humor as the introductory point. So he's got that in spades. We got that part down. Now, if you could just stop sheltering the other emotional sides to certain people and make that the only face that people see, and let them know that there's this underbelly of the beast, then maybe there's going to be some progress there. And once again, because we're talking about things that have been ingrained for, in his case, decades, because it's a comic, but over several years or the person's entire lifetime, we're not talking about things that are going to change immediately. But knowing what that particular antecedent, in this case, or most of these cases, we know what the antecedent is. It's really obvious. And then we know the typical response. We know the consequence. Getting that belief or that particular, middle point that is leading to the thought that the person is having automatically still remains kind of a lockbox. And hopefully, if the person doesn't continue to focus on the outside, trying to change the consequence, if he can finally or she can finally focus on that belief system, we can get change. I don't know if that's going to be in a couple of weeks. For some people, you do start to see progress quick, but for a lot of people, it's a long time.
You have to want to change, and you have to want to change for the right reasons. And you have to be open to that. That's something that I am still struggling with, still working on. And, I've been very open and honest. I've reinvigorated my search for a therapist. I realize that I'm really at a point in my life where I need it. And so I will be definitely, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, on air, sharing some of the things that I've learned in therapy and working, to better myself, because I know that I deserve it for me, and that I hope that it makes me a better person for me, not because I think it will help other people, but just for my own sake.
Well said.
To our listeners, I hope that if you are in the process of searching for a therapist, or in the process, I know we had the listener a couple weeks back who was, looking for therapy, and we were able to assist them, that you find it, and that you get the help that you are looking for, and the help that you need, and the help that you deserve.
Since you brought that up, I'm going to bring up something that I don't think we've directly talked about, and sometimes I take it for granted, and I don't mean to. There may be some people that may be listening for the first time, or even if you've been listening for a long time, you may be wondering, like, Doc, you're a psychiatrist. You and Anthony have said you're best friends, so why aren't you treating Anthony? And the answer is because Anthony's my best friend. That is not something... Well, I know we're saying it because we know these things, but like I said, I just recognize that it's better to say something about it rather than, just let it be like this common sense thing to say. It's a greater crime to to think without speaking than to speak without thinking. Someone taught me that several years ago in high school. I forgot who said that. It was Anthony. But I honestly have never taken that to heart, but in a case like this, I definitely should. So you don't treat your own family. You don't treat your own friends. There's just too much. It gets way too messy. That's the bottom line.
Yeah,
you don't do it.
Doc is absolutely a shoulder to lean on, and he is an ear as a friend. And I know that if I need something, I can certainly ask him. He is my brother. He is my family. But I would never in a million years ask Doc to treat me as a patient, because he knows me far too well, and he would not be able to give me the objectivity that I would need. It's not a question of would he be honest. It's just he knows me in a certain way. And
Right. And not only that, there's an effect that would have on me as well as a human being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would never want to do anything to damage the relationship that we've built.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I also just realized that all these things that we've been talking about, not just like the treatment in universe, out of universe, and what we just talked about that may seem a tangent. Wow. Someone did a really good job with this skit incorporating all of these factors. Dang. That is some good stuff. All right, we're going to find out.
We are going to find out what happens when we get Hank McCoy on Dr. Issues' couch.
Sorry, I'm just laying it on thick to be honest.
That's fine.
I really didn't think of that in this, like, that particular last topic until you brought it up, but I just realized, wait a minute, that is in the end of the skit. Okay, cool.
Let me just let the cat out, because now he's being annoying. It's all well and good while he was sitting there quiet, but then as soon as he started,
yeah,
I gotta let him out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I can breathe enough to the point that I don't think it's really going to be detrimentally impactful to the skit. And so I'm not going to sound like, like Chucky Fidster.
Yeah.
I'm scared, Tobby. All right.
Alrighty.
Ready when you are.
Okay. In 3, 2, 1. Hello, Dr. McCoy. I'm Dr. Issues.
Such formal nomenclature has no place between us. Please call me Hank.
I appreciate that, Hank, but I have to inform you that in a therapy session, the one utilizing the professional skills typically uses the formality as a way to maintain appropriate boundaries. I mean, if we were to truly share a moment of leisure, then I'd gladly allow you to call me.
I have no need for further explanation. I comprehend your point, and even your offer for such common ground is a pleasure.
You're so polite. While I have no reason to question its veracity, I do ponder if there's some affront, when you're not in welcome company. Do you speak this way to your foes?
If time, vigor, and circumstance permit, then yes, I do. To wit, do you engage in such sophisticated dialogue with those who lack the eloquence?
Fair point. Wait. This is a superficial debate. I have to stop.
Apologies. I didn't intend to offend you.
No, you're not offending me. And that's the problem. I've noticed that you've mastered the art of cocktail hour conversation. The problem is no matter what I say or do, you're going to be able to present it to me in a way that makes it appear that you're just fine. But that's not what I'm aiming for.
Do not let the behavior of others destroy your inner peace. The Dalai Lama.
I know that you're well read. This is worth a shot. Do you frighten people?
I fear that the banter in this repartee has been sullied by your harsh transition.
Good. Please answer the question.
No. To clarify, I answer the question with no, but I do have to qualify that further by delineating the meaning of frighten. Do I intentionally have others tremble in my presence? Perish the thought. Yet I will affirm that some do cast their gaze elsewhere if I'm in the vicinity. Others, frankly, are excited by my appearance, a fact which mitigates that fear. It can be a gamble, quite honestly. So I have learned to, as they say, roll with the punches.
How many punches do you take on the chin? And just to be clear, I'm not referring to physical altercations.
If you were on the dunes of the Sahara, Doctor, do you count the grains of sand?
That rough sometimes, huh?
I have no intentions of pity, Doctor. I worry that you're trying to paint me as depressed. I don't lend myself to melancholy as easily as you presume.
Anger, then? Low frustration tolerance? Rage?
My animalistic visage belies my gentle nature.
How about the opposite? Increased energy, no need for sleep, periods of elation, grandiosity.
Oh, my stars and garters, dear physician, colleague in science. You are truly well-versed in your field to ask questions related to mania. Heavens, no, not for a prolonged time. Only during a truly engaging project. And while you're asking, I have not experienced Schneiderian?
Yeah, Schneiderian. Yep.
Okay. And while you're asking, I have not experienced Schneiderian symptoms either.
Okay, so no psychosis either, since that's what Schneiderian symptoms are. You studied this too, haven't you?
Merely enough not to be a rube in the world of mental health. Need I remind you, I have been on teams with numerous psychics and masters of mentalism. One needs to be well-versed in the way the mind works just to stand a chance.
Alrighty then. I'll admit, I'm at a loss. You're demonstrating good coping mechanisms. You have enough knowledge that, although I would never recommend this, you may have a sense of your own clinical areas that need work. You have the most brilliant minds as part of your intellectual circle, and the most powerful mutants in your repertoire to battle for just causes. I mean, what do you need me for?
In our first words to one another, you have your answer.
Huh? Huh. Huh. Well, well, my answer is genuine. It hurts sometimes when I say this, but in that way, I can't be your friend. However, I can be a professional confidant. Anything that you can't say to someone else, you can say to me. As long as it's not dangerous to yourself or to others, I have an oath to keep it quiet. Does that reach a fair equilibrium in this pseudo-scientific equation?
You truly are a gentleman and a scholar. I thank you, Doctor, and look forward to future sessions. Your candor and professionalism are a welcome break from some of my usual colleagues.
Not getting this type of discussion in the mansion?
Let's just say Logan is a wonderful teammate for, say, cracking a bottle, but not on cracking books.
Nor cracking a smile. I mean, I imagine.
No need to fret. I, too, am keen on the nature of our discussions remaining private. I will not tempt you again. I will merely have Emma relay any pertinent discourse to me.
What?
Oh, my dear doctor, I couldn't resist throwing that out there. Have to keep you on your toes, since I'm always on mine. I bid you farewell. Well, that, I think, was one of the most polite sessions you've ever had.
Well, I wouldn't have expected anything else from Dr. McCoy. I really do think that there's something underneath that furry exterior, though. I wonder if he's really going to let me see inside.
I don't know. Goodness knows he is capable of unleashing the beast, so to speak. And heaven help anybody who's on the other end of those claws. So that's about going to wrap it up. I didn't come up with a recommended reading.
Maybe the Weed and Run?
What? Yeah,
Maybe
you know
the
what?
Weed
Let's go with that. So for recommended reading, I would suggest The Astonishing X-Men by Joss Whedon. The early part of that, specifically the Gifted storyline about the possible mutant cure, etc., that was later ham-fistedly crammed into the Last Stand story, the Last Stand movie, rather, done very, very well in the comics and really shows Beast struggling with the nature of who he is and does he want the cure? Does he need the cure? What good would the cure do to mutant kind? It's given far more emotional weight than it is, I think, in the movies, at the very least, The Last Stand. And so I would urge you to go check that out, The Astonishing X-Men. I think it's like 1 through 19, I think, is the Joss Whedon part, and then Warren Ellis takes over writing on that. But give that a read. There's some really hilarious stuff in there, especially later on with the Beast and Logan. I don't really want to spoil anything. So review read Joanna on Apple Podcasts said, "Capes to you, great show. I love the banter and comic news." So thank you, Joanna, for that awesome review. And you can feel free to leave us a rating and review on Podchaser or Apple Podcasts. And if you do leave us a rating and review, please email us at capesonthecouch@gmail.com with a screenshot and your address, and we will send you a sticker as a way of saying thank you. So next episodes are Ego, The Living Planet, and the 100th episode special. So again, capesonthecouch.live/nominees. Go vote and get those votes in, as well as the AMA, because we're doing the mailbag episode. And I am working on a special surprise for the episode, and I have not mentioned anything about this to Doc as of yet. But
What?
yeah, exactly.
Oh dear.
A little something I'm working on. It'll be done in time. Fingers crossed.
Okay.
So As always, you can find us, find all of our episodes on our website, capesonthecouch.live, and we are on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Capes on the Couch. You can email us at capesonthecouch@gmail.com. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/Capes on the Couch. You can subscribe and unlock additional content. By the time this episode airs, our review of Fables will be up for our patrons. So we do bi-weekly trade paperback reviews. And if we get a couple more patrons, we will do film commentaries, monthly movie commentaries in the style of Riff Tracks and Mystery Science Theater 3000. So that should be a lot of fun. So go to patreon.com/Capes on the Couch and subscribe, and you can unlock all that additional cool stuff. And we've got a TeePublic site as well, tpublic.com. If you search for Capes on the Couch, you can buy merch with our logo or the Why Because Comics on it. I know our present level patron Brian just got himself a Why Because Comics shirt. So thank you, Brian, for that. And that's going to wrap it up. This episode wasn't nearly as hairy as I thought it was going to be.
Oh, you the one that got puns. Okay.
Okay. Well, I figure every once in a while I have to, got to throw them in there. Do you have any, or is that, were you going to make a hairy pun?
I have. No. I actually do have something to say. This is something that you may not have expected. So, comedian Dave Chappelle, when he was receiving an award, pointed out that his mother always told him, sometimes you have to be a lion so that later on you can be the lamb you really are. And I think what that means is, once in a while, after you unleash the beast, it allows you to be the real McCoy.
Ooh, beautiful. I like that. So on that note, we are done. For Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, that one I'll admit. That one I definitely had ahead of time. I had that one lined up.
That's fine. The real McCoy. Come and get your love. Come and get your love. So.
Okay. Yep. Saving.
Hey, Janine. Just saying hi to Janine, who's been watching us on Facebook, as well as Ben and Chad.
Yay!
Ben and Chad, good friends of the show, fellow podcasters.
Yeah. Okay, saving. All right, and I'll get that over to you.
As I know you always do. So that's all right. I am now going to crash and burn from the Benadryl. I'm impressed that I was able to maintain the ability to breathe and think and speak.
Yeah, makes sense.
Semi-coherently, but I'm tired of doing that. So peace out. Love you all, everybody. Have a good night.
All right.
See you next week.
Yep. Take care. Bye-bye.